All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the show. I'm your host, Daniel Cody, and this is where I give commentary and reviews on all things wrestling from the past, present, and future. And today, I decided to do an On This Day tribute as promised for Unforgiven 2004. Before I get started, thank you guys for your views. Thank you for your subscriptions. It is well appreciated, and thank you for your likes also. Now, let's get started with, as promised, a review from the past on Unforgiven 2004. Starting with our opening match, tag team match between Evolution members Ric Flair and Batista versus William Regal and Benoit. As we all know, William Regal wants revenge for his friend Eugene, who was injured by Triple H. At one time, Eugene had an upset victory against Triple H due to the help of Randy Orton, newfound champion. But either way, this is a match to avenge not only Eugene, but William Regal himself for what happened to him at the hands of Triple H and his return at SummerSlam '04. It was a pretty interesting opening tag team match, which saw Batista surprisingly get isolated by both Benoit and William Regal. But the tables would later turn, and I did not expect that to happen to Batista. He was a gigantic, muscular heel, and usually those things don't happen. But it happened that time, and Regal and Benoit isolated him. We got to see the tables turn a little bit when Regal was isolated by the Evolution members, Batista and Ric Flair. Somehow, the masters of the chest choppers, Ric Flair and Benoit, I think Benoit stings a lot more than Ric Flair, but they still hurt. But the masters of the chest chops got together at the end of the match, and I must say there was a very entertaining moment during this tag team match where Ric Flair was Irish whipped into the ropes and attacked. And there's this part that he does that I absolutely love when he goes swinging. Wait for it. And sometimes the opposite wrestler would have to back up because they know what's coming. And it's funny when Ric Flair just goes and then falls out like Goliath in the Bible. That is so entertaining to see. I love watching that. But either way, some way or another, Benoit has Flair in the crippled crossface, and Flair taps out. I did not see that coming, considering that they had Batista, a future World Heavyweight Champion and Evolution member, alongside Ric Flair. I thought Ric Flair and Batista were going to take that home. But thankfully, for the fans' sake, because Benoit and Regal were the faces and Evolution were the heels, thankfully, Benoit made Flair tap out. Moving on to the second match, we have a woman who should be a future Hall of Famer someday, Victoria, and a Hall of Famer now, Trish Stratus. It was a great, interesting match. Victoria, in the beginning of the match, showing off her strength, pressing Trish Stratus over her head for the gutbuster. And for those of you who have seen it on YouTube, you know that that image is not just a thumbnail, it is an image for wrestling magazines in the past, because Victoria is very strong. Of course, when I think of strong women, I think of her, I think of Beth Phoenix, and current WWE SmackDown Women's Champion, Bianca Belair. The only three I can think. In fact, Bianca hoisted Sasha at WrestleMania and then carried her up the stairs with her still hoisted. She did the same to Vega. But back to this match. Interesting match. Trish took control for a little bit, but the difference maker was Tyson Tomko, who later on that night would have a victory over Stevie Richards in a 6-minute, 24-second match. But back to this one. He was a bit of a difference maker in this match, to the point where Victoria went for a over the top rope springboard splash onto Tomko, taking him out for a minute. But that slight distraction of attention helped Trish take advantage for the Stratus faction for the win. So, Tyson was in action successfully, and Trish Stratus was in action defending her women's championship against a very familiar foe in Victoria. And a lot of people talk about how Lita versus Trish was a great rivalry, but these two had an amazing rivalry as well. Victoria and Trish Stratus. That was also a great rivalry in the women's division during the Ruthless Aggression era. Very awesome. Moving on, of course, while Tomko was successful and Trish was successful, their third ally, Christian, CLB at the time, that was very funny. I just learned that yesterday. That was hilarious. But CLB, aka Creepy Little... Oh, God, that was so close. I almost said it. I almost forgot it was a curse word. Good God Almighty. I almost forgot that was a bad word. So, CLB, who we used to call Christian, Creepy Little Mustard, was in action against Chris Jericho in a ladder match. And it was a match that was more entertaining because of that angle. And the ladder match highlights were a bit okay. We saw Chris Jericho take a page out of Shawn Michaels' playbook from WrestleMania 10. Excuse me. Taking a page out of his playbook by using the ladder and falling onto Christian, squashing him like Shawn Michaels did at WrestleMania 10. Also, after an attempted bulldog by Chris Jericho, he accidentally it was countered, and Chris Jericho ended up hurting his leg. So that gave Christian a bit of an advantage. However, thankfully, we were able to see the walls of Jericho from the ladder, which was awesome. Background story of this match is that last week called a review from the past was SummerSlam 2004, where it was Christian versus Jericho versus Batista for the IC title. But Edge got injured and had to forfeit that match. Therefore, we had to have a ladder match between Christian and Edge. No, Christian and Chris Jericho, my apologies, for the Intercontinental Championship in a ladder match. Not a cage match, because the last time those two were in a cage match, Christian was out of action. But Christian came back after Edge informed Jericho on the highlight reel that he was injured. And then Christian attacked, which led to this match and the renewal of their 2004 rivalry. But back to this match. Christian versus Jericho ladder match. We saw the walls of Jericho on Christian, and we saw a double bulldog from the top of the ladder. That can give both guys a concussion or send them to the hospital. But either way, eventually Chris Jericho was able to get the victory. And I will say this, to be a little honest with you, it was an okay ladder match. It might have been a little underrated, but me personally, I wouldn't say that it was one of my top 10 favorite ladder matches. Although you have Shawn Michaels versus Razor Ramon 1, and then you have the WrestleMania triple threat matches between the Dudleys, the Hardys, and of course Edge and Christian, just to name a couple of great ladder matches. So there were a lot of great ladder matches. I don't know if I would name this one at the top 10, but it was still pretty nice to watch. So moving on, Chris Jericho is now the new Intercontinental Champion, and going forth, we have a grudge match between Kane and the returning Shawn Michaels. For those of you who did not see it, I did another review from the past a couple of months ago on Bad Blood 2004. After a grueling match with Triple H, Shawn Michaels and Triple H shook hands to somewhat bury the hatchet, and then Kane came out and assaulted a vulnerable Shawn Michaels, crushing his neck with a steel chair. So this was a grudge match that saw Kane with his newly unloved wedded wife Lita against Shawn Michaels. And this was kind of entertaining because you have Jerry Law on commentary, and I'll get to that in a minute. But then you also have, did I mention Jerry on Victoria versus Trish Stratus? I'm telling you, Jerry worshipped the ground that Trish Stratus walked on. I mean, I'm telling you, if Trish Stratus told him to take a long walk off of a short cliff, scriptly speaking, he probably would. That's how hypnotized he was by Trish. But to this match, Jerry Lawler continues his ridiculous way of entertaining by supporting the heels, even Kane, as sadistic as he was back in the day. And of course, saying that Lita should support her man instead of standing by Shawn Michaels, because we all know that every time Shawn Michaels gave offense, Lita was happy, but when Kane took control, which he did for the most part, Lita was unhappy. In fact, when Kane had Shawn in a headlock, Lita was tapping on the apron with the fans, trying to will Shawn Michaels on while saying how much she hates Kane. In fact, she said she hated Kane at the wedding, and of course saying that she hoped Kane would rot in hell. So that match was just, those two were just not meant to be at all. But either way, apparently she was pregnant at the time, according to the storyline, but she couldn't stand the man. Imagine being with somebody you can't stand, and imagine having intercourse with someone you can't stand. Adult stars do it all the time. But either way, I probably shouldn't have said that, but either way, moving forward, interesting match. After being dominated by Kane, Shawn Michaels took control, made his comeback, flying forearm. I kind of saw this coming, but Kane sat up at the same time that Shawn Michaels would eventually do his bounce up, and then the fight continues. Shawn Michaels goes for an elbow, tries to go for sweet chin music, but is countered by a big boot, aka Big Red Chemical, because his theme song is inspired by Slow Chemical. By, what's the, Finger 11, yeah. Slow Chemical by Finger 11. Strange names, but awesome music. But either way, that didn't work that time, but somehow or another, Shawn Michaels gets a steel chair in the ring, and this is after Shawn hit Kane with a low blow, punching Kane in the spicy cereal hoops, as I'm going to call them spicy chili hoops for humor purposes, because I got to keep this somewhat PG. But Kane got punched low, and Jerry Lawler, with his silly self, said that Lita's happy about that, of course, because that means Kane is not going to be frisky or in the mood tonight. Good. Kane probably had bad breath when those two were, well, either way, Shawn Michaels got a steel chair in the ring, and thankfully this was not posted by the WWE Network, because then they would censor the chair shot because of the person I mentioned at the beginning of the review. But Kane gets hit in the head with a chair. Sweet chin music. 1, 2, 3. Shawn Michaels wins. Lita's happy. Shawn Michaels actually shakes Lita's hands. But Jerry Lawler's commentary is the wild card of that match. Kind of entertaining. Ridiculous, but entertaining. And speaking of Jerry Lawler's commentary, let's get down to the main event. I believe that's everything. Let's get into this main event. An awesome one. Triple H versus Randy Orton, World Heavyweight Championship. This whole thing started, for those of you who saw my review from the past, SummerSlam 2004, it started when Randy Orton defeated Benoit for the World Heavyweight Championship in SummerSlam's main event, breaking Brock Lesnar's record of youngest heavyweight champion to do it at SummerSlam. Next week, about 8 days later, after a rematch defense against Chris Benoit, Batista hoists Randy Orton over his shoulders. Triple H gives him thumbs up, thumbs down, and the betrayal happens. And what's funny is, for those of us who played this game here, SmackDown vs. Raw 2006, you remember Jerry Lawler saying how Randy Orton's an ingrate, and as soon as he got successful, he turned on Ric Flair and Triple H, the men who made him who he is today. And JR said, nope, that's not what happened. They knocked him down, and they did it out of jealousy. However, what's strange is, if you played this game here, you remember when Jerry Lawler said that Randy Orton was a genius for turning on Ric Flair and Orton and striking on his own. However, JR said, because he was a heel at the time, Randy Orton I'm speaking of, that Ric Flair, Triple H, and Batista turned on Orton and knocked some of the cockiness out of him when they did it. Interesting. But let's get to the matters at hand. So after the beatdown, Randy Orton is told to surrender and relinquish the title to Triple H, but doesn't. Instead, he spits on Triple H, and runs, rightfully so, because Triple H was seething. He was seething. And if you saw him the next Monday, the way he said, "You spat in my face. That's the way you repay me for everything I've done for you. You spit in my face." Triple H was seething. He was hot as fire. So that's what led to the match, not to mention the upset victory I told you about earlier, with an assist from Orton, Eugene picking a victory over Triple H. So this match happens, and Randy Orton continues to get under Triple H's skin by slapping him in the face in the beginning of the match. So then amateur skills get put on display. Triple H shoves Orton. Orton slaps Triple H again. Jerry Lawler actually saw something coming that I did not. Jerry Lawler actually called it when he said Randy Orton's going to spit again. And of course his prediction was correct. He spits on Triple H's chest. And I will tell y'all something. It's a good thing it happened in 2004 and not 2020 or 2021, because we're in a pandemic now. But either way, Randy Orton gets under Triple H's skin. And I think Randy Orton had a death wish. Even though Randy Orton was a babyface at the time, and because he spent a lot of time as a heel from 2005 to 2010, it is sometimes forgotten that he was a babyface in 2004. But he just got under Triple H's skin and just made the game hot. So they're in a slugfest, and they swing to the point where Randy Orton loses his elbow pad, just like Montez Ford lost his shoe. And I forgot to call that, but Montez lost his shoe in an amazing tag team match Friday night, with the Demon Finn returning. So eventually Triple H takes control by going after Orton's left leg and isolating that, using the figure 4 lock, tribute to his Evolution friend Ric Flair. But then, after being caught using the ropes for leverage and cheating by Earl Hebner, fun fact, Earl Hebner and Triple H can't stand each other. If you go back to the Attitude Era, to the Ruthless Aggression Era, until Earl Hebner went to TNA and then AEW. When he was in WWE, he could not stand Triple H. Triple H couldn't stand him. Storyline speaking. But those two couldn't stand each other. He caught Triple H red-handed, and so he tried to go for the figure 4 lock again, only to be pushed headfirst into the turnbuckle post, which busts Triple H open. And so they continue to fight it off until the referee is accidentally knocked down. Two other points. I really miss seeing Randy Orton do that crossbody splash, and we also got to see vintage Orton, as Michael Cole would call it, with the power slam that was delivered. But back to the referee being knocked out. As the referee was knocked out, Triple H had summoned help after an RKO with no one to count. Evolution members come out. But before that happened, I want to point out something else that was very entertaining. I loved how when Triple H tried to go for the elbow in that match, Randy Orton countered it with a boot. And Triple H, like Ric Flair, oversells things in a very funny manner back then. He would jump and get caught with a boot to the chin, Triple H, and Triple H would just stand there like this. And like Goliath in the Bible, he will fall out. That was hilarious. I mean, there was a time where Triple H and Ric Flair had a tag match in a dark match between Randy Orton and Shawn Michaels, and it was very entertaining. One time, Triple H stood there and he did an elbow and got caught with a big boot, and he stood there for almost 5 minutes, just stood there. I mean, who oversells it in a more sillier fashion? Ric Flair or Triple H? Because both of those guys are hilarious the way they just stand there and then just fall out. But either way, Triple H summons the help of Ric Flair and Batista, and then Crooked Coach as a referee. We all think that's, I believe it was Scott Armstrong. Michael Cole called Scott Armstrong a crooked referee, but Coach is the crookedest of them all, Jonathan Coachman. Of course, he gets his. He got RKO'd, but because of a chair shot by Triple H and a pedigree on that chair, he is now once again the World Heavyweight Champion for the 9th time, and JR is having a fit. Jerry Lawler calls it destiny. Jerry Lawler's like, "Destiny, my Oklahoma." And if you ever played this game, remember when I mentioned this game earlier, there's a part where Jerry Lawler condones cheating. He's like, "That was an incredible move. What strategy?" And JR's like, "Strategy, my Oklahoma. That's cheating, plain and simple." Good times. Whew, good times, folks. Good times. I actually went in 2007. That has an amazing soundtrack, by the way. But JR is having a fit. He's seething hot. But Randy Orton gets his by ruining the celebration the next night, popping out of a bachelor cake. That was entertaining. So, what you think about this event? Did you enjoy it? I thought it was interesting. Let me know what you think in the comments section below. Let me know what you think about the nostalgia of SmackDown versus Raw. That's all the time I got for you today, folks. I'll be back another time with another review. Thanks for watching. Have a good Sunday. Peace.